1 second. He's
Are you good? Okay. Thanks everyone for being here. This is very formal. It's not usually my vibe. So feel free to interrupt me and ask questions. So I've seen some of your faces before. I initially got introduced to Saginaw CAP in 2021 when the moratoriums on water shutoffs during the pandemic lifted, and folks in Saginaw started having their water shut off again. And there was a big, in my opinion, pushback against that because water shutoffs only exacerbate folks' hardships. They are a severe problem with public health. And on the whole, they don't really save utilities money. They're just a punitive way that we punish folks who already have enough on their plates. So since then, there's been a ton of work that's happened at the state level to bring everyone to the table. And by everyone, I mean service providers, community health agencies, water utilities, and advocates like the Sierra Club, who I work for, to talk about how we can get to a mutually beneficial solution to the water affordability crisis in Michigan. And when I say crisis, I'm not exaggerating. You know, in 2014, the United Nations actually brought a delegation to Detroit and declared the water shutoff epidemic in Detroit a human rights violation. So to set the stage, what I like to point out to folks is that we built out our drinking and wastewater system fundamentally with a massive amount of federal funding. So no debt financing, funding, dollars. And what we've done in the years since we did that is we pulled all that money out and we started debt financing. So when you pay for a car, if you have to pay interest, you obviously have to pay more than the sticker price, right? That's how everything works. We have been debt financing our infrastructure and relying only on ratepayers to cover the cost of actually maintaining it, and that is not possible. That is a make-believe world. It is never going to work to only rely on ratepayers. And the result is that we have crumbling infrastructure. Utilities don't have the money they need in order to upgrade it, and folks can't afford their water bills. So this is bananas. We got to stop this. We need a lot of different solutions. But the first one is really triaging, helping our most vulnerable folks to make sure that we are not shutting off water, because that is a serious, serious public health threat. So the package of bills that's under consideration in Lansing right now is fantastic. In my opinion, as someone who's worked in Lansing for a little while, there's no sneaky bad stuff that we had to compromise on in order to get everyone on the same page. And that speaks to the process and collaboration of everyone who gave input into the bills. So I'm going to describe what the bills do. And then Deb here, who is an attorney for the city of Detroit, she's going to talk about some specific need in Saginaw that she thinks this bill package will help address, and we can take some questions. So the first bill, it's the low-income water residential affordability program. So the affordability is the actual program that's going to be run that's going to help everyone. So it covers 2 tiers of folks. If you are between 0 and 135% of the federal poverty level, that means the bill that you get from your water utility cannot exceed 2% of your household annual income in the area, 2%. Which means that you are not being given a bill that your household cannot actually afford. It's different than assistance, right? Assistance is like, here's this $10 credit for your $100 bill. That's not what this is. This means your bill is going to be capped, so it's a percentage of your annual income. The second tier, if you're at 136 to 200% of the federal poverty level, your bill can't exceed 3% of the average annual household income. So there's those 2 tiers. So this will give customers certainty about what they're going to owe each month. They're not going to be any surprises. It's going to protect revenue for water providers, so they're not going to be floating a bunch of bad debt. Money for the affordability fund, I think this is really important, can go to debt forgiveness, arrearage forgiveness. So up to $1,500 in 1 year, and then higher arrearages can be considered. Money can also go to plumbing repairs. So in a lot of older households where you actually need plumbing repairs, if you don't have the cash to make those repairs, not only do you not have the cash to make those repairs, but on top of that, your water bill is expensive because you've got things that are leaking. So arrearages, plumbing repairs can go towards that. This program is going to be administered by the Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS, unless there's an existing local plan. If there's an existing local plan that's working, say for example in Detroit they've got the Lifeline plan, Southeast Michigan they've got REP. If there is an existing water affordability plan that meets that criteria, great. And it's an ongoing program provided that the funding is there. So that's how that works. The funding source. So the funding source would be a $2 per meter monthly fee for all metered customers. It's going to generate $65 million a year. The water providers are going to submit that to the state. There's going to be oversight with the DHHS and a new task force to evaluate the program and how it's going. And that fund can take other dollars. So it can take federal dollars, it can take philanthropic dollars, like more money can go into it, but that's like the baseline funding. Right now in Michigan, for a couple of budget cycles now, the state has been appropriating about $60 million to help with water affordability. So right now, that's would help replace that because there's no guarantee. I think there were 2 budget cycles we've gotten that. There's no guarantee that that's going to continue. So right now, everyone's talking about budget delancing, and it is highly unlikely that the state is going to keep appropriating $60 million a year. So this is really important and really good. And I think another important thing to note is that if you're enrolled in the program, that first $2 is part of your cap fee, so it's not on top of it. Yes. Yes. No, go ahead. Yeah.
So, homeowner renter has to be enrolled in the program, so it doesn't just come from the city government automatically. You have to enroll in this program.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Okay.
Check your best. Okay. So now the third bill, this is incredibly important, shut-off protections. So it outlines, to be clear too, I think we need to talk about what currently exists and what the shut-off protections bill does. There's no state law. It's like a free-for-all, Wild West. There is absolutely no statutory state law protecting people from water shutoffs. So we are starting from like ground zero and getting in-state law protections. So it outlines multiple notice provisions to prevent shutoffs, billing statements, door hangers, home visits, calls, and texts. It requires folks to apply for the affordability program and payment plan, and if you've applied, it prevents the shutoff. Critical care customers, so I believe that's folks on disability and seniors, are protected from shutoffs regardless of their income. So for really vulnerable parts of the population, they're protected from shutoffs. If a customer fails to comply with the affordability program requirements, there's another round of triage to make sure that shutoffs don't happen. So the goal is really to prevent shutoffs at all costs and also outline transparently the steps that the city or utility or whoever's administering the program has to take if they're considering a shutoff. And from what we've seen, this is critically important because right now there's absolutely no process and there's a whole bunch of debate about what a customer has and hasn't done, and it's just been an absolute mess, hence the UN. There are 3 more bills. There's an allowance for tenant sub-metering. So tenants can request that their water bill be transferred in their name in case they've got a landlord that is not paying the water bill in good faith, and they're worried about that. There's decriminalization of water reconnection. So right now it's a 5-year felony in the state of Michigan if you reconnect your water after it's been shut off yourself. This decriminalizes it and takes it down a notch to a big, well, I shouldn't say a notch, it takes it down to a misdemeanor, a fine. So that's critically important because we need to move away from criminalizing poverty. And then the last bill in the package declares that the state of Michigan acknowledges that there's a human right to water, which is an important tool in the future. So that's the whole bill package. There are things we want to do in the future, like raise more money for infrastructure overall. We obviously want to tax large water users and big corporations and very, very wealthy people. One day we can get there. This sets up the structure to start moving in that direction where we're adequately funding our water affordability. It doesn't do it yet, but it acknowledges that we have to start taking some really critical, important steps to making sure that we're providing everyone with safe drinking water. There has been discussions too in the past about transparency of billing, right? That is another separate conversation. And the only reason I'm mentioning those that aren't included in the bill package, because sometimes we go and talk to folks for the first time, they're like, oh, how do you thought about this? And the short answer is yes, definitely. Also, this is like the first and topmost priority because of the importance of providing water for public health and taking care of folks that are most vulnerable. So we want to do that first, and then we'll get on with all the other stuff. So, do you want to talk about need in Saginaw? Yes.
Thank you so much. Decriminalization of persons that have reconnected their own water. Is that actually included in this, or is it steps on its own?
It's a part of the bill package.
It's a separate bill, but they're all
Right.
connected.
Yeah.
So how would that, this is real quick synopsis, how would that work? Because it's probably an overwhelming amount of persons who would actually go to that. So would this go back, retro to people that have done
If they're-
it?
That's a great question. Can you answer it?
No,
I
it's
don't
not addressed in here.
Yeah,
It's probably going forward, but truthfully, the prosecutors say we have way more important crimes and felonies to go after than someone reconnecting their water just to survive. I don't know, I've been at the city water department 7 years, I don't know of any case they took against a resident for illegally connecting water. We can barely get the prosecutor to go after commercial accounts. Because they say, we're looking for murderers and rapists, not people who turn on the water. So, but we'll bring that back to the stakeholder group about that.
Because I was just thinking that, a municipality could probably, if they wanted to be facetious, utilize that against.
I mean, all the more reason to get this bill package passed as soon as possible, in my opinion.
And I think we've also added just community service, not even a fine, community service
Right.
as a maximum punishment. It's meant to deter people from illegally reconnecting their water and incentivizing them to come in and ask for the help, get in the program. That's what we really want, people to join the program.
And I think there's been a collective understanding that punitive shut-off policies were not really, they weren't saving utilities any money. They were expensive, and they were, creating serious public health problems. And I think that that's part of the reason why there's so much consensus behind this bill package, because everyone has really changed their opinion, and is utility providers and advocates are pushing in the same direction, because the goal is really providing water for everyone at a rate we can afford.
So in most places in Michigan, that you may know, because like here in Saginaw, once your water is cut off, you have to pay, not only to get it cut back on, you have to pay this, that, all this extra good stuff. So you know where is ahead.
If you couldn't pay the bill in the first place, you can't pay the penalties.
Right.
Is that even dangerous to that?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna add, and I don't know if you all, I'm sorry, I was just getting in late, and if I missed some of the history, but not only could you not get the water back on, but the municipality's not getting any more money.
Right.
They're racking
That's
up
exactly
bills.
right. That is exactly right, and that is part of the reason why the utilities have been actually really good partners here. The logic behind this is that everyone paying what they can
Right.
means more money for the utilities than people who are struggling not paying anything. It's very basic math. That's exactly right.
I worked for a city government, I worked for the city of Flint, and we were very, adamant about addressing the original problem that drove the water prices, which was the high rates. And part of it was us asking, as a public health person, rate to the ratepayer, can you do your part while we try to fix some other things? So the truth of the matter is that we had leaks in our system, an outdated system, a lot of the costs that was really the municipality, and really not at their fault, just shrinking the infrastructure that hadn't been addressed in years.
Right.
And
It's
that,
not funding. It's not
and it's
funding
being
infrastructure.
pushed on to the people.
Right.
And so we did a study that was a statewide study that talked about, this graduated, or this way, a tiered system of billing. And the Mott Foundation, as well as a group out of Chicago, helped us to fund that. And then we were just about to do a pilot in the city of Flint where we actually did the tiered system, but we did the research. And then we were getting ready to pilot it. I don't think that pilot ever went through. But I mean, I just know that there's municipalities, and Monique, you're here representing that municipality. But this was birthed out of the work of a municipality, which was Flint. And so we were moving towards that.
Any other questions? Well, University of Michigan worked with some of the water advocates, do some data mining, because a lot of people aren't convinced this legislation is needed. But the numbers don't lie. It's definitely needed. Just in Saginaw County, it looks like the average water and sewer bill is $50. That's actually kind of low. I question that number. But under this legislation, 15% of the households in Saginaw County would be eligible for the program. And that's about 8,400 households. And it would cost $1.8 million a year to fund the program, even if just only 40% of the eligible households signed up for the program. Well, you don't have $1.8 million to fund this program. And there's 190,120 residents or households in Saginaw County. If each of those households pays that $2 fee, you're nowhere near close enough to meet the amount of need. That's why the goal is for it to be a statewide program. Everyone pitches into the pool, and the need goes where it's needed. People in wealthy suburbs, they may have 0 households that are eligible for the program, but they're going to contribute to the pot so that people in Saginaw County can withdraw from it and join the program. If I give you a bill that's $15 a month or $18 a month, okay, you'll pay what you can. That's fair and square, 2 or 3% of household income. The rest of the bill has to get paid by somebody, and that's where the $2 comes in. All goes in the pool. That pool pays the amount over and above the $15 or $18, so that your whole bill gets paid and your water utility can pay its bills and fix the infrastructure. So it's a simple concept, but some of the pushback has been, well, we don't need it, so why should we pitch in? Well, come on. There are people who do need it, and $2 a month is nothing.
I think one other really important point to make is that by pulling together resources, we are truly lowering costs for everyone. I think there's this fantasy land that folks are in where they think the question is whether or not we pay $2 per meter to fund this, or we don't pay $2 per meter. But the question we need to be asking is, how much higher are water rates going to keep going if utilities are forced to float bad debt, right? And on top of that, this bill package will decriminalize water reconnections. It's going to have this extensive triage program. It's going to make sure that seniors and people with disabilities aren't getting their water shut off. It declares water as a human right. I mean, I truly think that it's misinformation that's pretty disingenuous to imply that this is an extra cost. This is economies of scale, and instead of debt financing, we are paying for something which is cheaper in the long run. So the question isn't, do we pay $2 or not pay $2? The question is, do we start pulling together resources to deal with this problem that we literally all have, or are we going to keep pitting communities against each other and pretending like we don't all benefit by taking care of basic public health protections?
And if none of us in here paid our bill, well, somebody has to pay it. So the water utility takes the amount we didn't pay, rolls it into their costs the next year, and raises rates. I mean, you're paying for it one way or another if people cannot pay their bill. So the goal is pay what you can, the pool pays the rest, and there's less of that bad debt that gets rolled into the rates. Now rates, I mean, no one should say, oh, this will prevent all rate increases. Rates will go up anyway because the cost of materials and labor, but they shouldn't be going up because people aren't paying their bill. This covers that portion of a water utilities expenses.
And as they go up, it protects the people that are struggling the most with increasing
Yeah,
water.
you have
rates, right?
certainty that it's based on your household income. You're not at the mercy of the water providers' rate increases from year to year.
You mentioned that, you had stats that, said that the,
Yeah.
average cost.
The average water and sewer bill in Saginaw County is $50.50.
The sewer bill.
Water and
Just-
sewer bill combined
And that's for
That
county.
don't.
for the whole
That's
county.
county.
Yeah, that's county, that's not.
What is
Okay,
it?
see, then that makes a big difference.
Yeah, what is
City
it?
is-
Stats are
Yeah,
all-
which
City
would be
is higher.
different
Yes.
because when,
What's your average bill, would you say?
in my opinion, I'd say over $100.
Yeah.
Oh,
At least
what's
80.
over
We
100?
pay more in the city than they do in the
Yeah,
county.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Even though we
So there you
feed.
go, you really are feeling the pinch. If Flint, their average water bill is like $150. That's just crazy.
Yeah, because when I stood with, Cat during, 2021, and, not only did I stand with them, then I pulled my sleeves up and worked at City Hall and said, hey, I'm volunteering. We had lines
Mhm.
out the door to the street with people that needed help with water. That's why I questioned that. Then I not work with, but I get information from Community Action Center. They run out of money like this
Yeah,
from helping people with utilities. That's why I questioned that. And I'm like, $50?
Yeah.
I wish mine was $50.
right, right.
Yeah, okay, that's why.
So I'm putting that down, because that's a good talking point for all of you. You know, our goal is that you spread the word and diffuse all of the misinformation that's out there. It's just been so much.
And water is only one utility cost.
Oh,
Right.
So,
And you know, forever there's been the light heat for the heat and gas.
yeah.
Turn the heat down.
Yeah.
And then the citizens to come to try to save money.
And I think it's, I was saying to Jeff earlier that we're, a lot of times when we're talking about state legislation, there are a lot of different competing interests at the table that are opposed to each other. A lot of times you're dealing with, shady, secret money influencing things, and it's actually not the case with this legislation. All the stakeholders who have an interest in what happens here are not primarily concerned with shareholder profits. They're concerned with providing a public service, and that has made this entire experience really different. And I think because Michiganders are so used to dealing with the way that money's really corrupted the legislative process, there's a lot of skepticism about how this bill package is going to hurt people. Surely, if something's coming out of Lansing, there's going to be something sneaky and bad in it. And I promise you, I'm the person who's always blowing the whistle on the sneaky bad stuff. Like, that is 100% my lane. There is no sneaky bad stuff in this bill package. I promise.
And don't let anyone dare say that it's free water for poor people. You know, they gotta pull themselves up by the bootstraps and pay their bill. They will be paying their bill, a bill they can afford based on household income.
That's
That's the
yeah.
future.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, unfortunately, we care about it.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, exactly. But others, it's gonna be the fact that it takes the load off of the utility, or it takes the load off of the other people.
But that's the thing, this is not a bailout for the water providers. The people who can't afford the bill, we're paying for it anyway through the rate increases.
Right.
You were still
Right,
paying.
I know, but I'm just saying some other talking points for the
Yeah. Here's the people who were helped craft this. Legislators, water advocates, environmental groups, the utilities themselves, water utility associations across the state, nurses, social service agencies, and the Department of Health and Human Services were all at the table. And we had some spirited discussions, we certainly did. I was there as the water provider voice. And, we had to give some reality checks, and there was some pushback. And there was a lot of concessions by everybody that made it that much stronger. Every meeting, it got stronger. I'm sorry, Jeff.
I was just gonna raise the question, because this is pushback that I've got, Monique, you probably know. Will this harm other forms of help? I wanted to ask that question out loud, because that was some of the local sentiment that I got pushback on, was like, well, if we support this, this will hurt CAC, or this will hurt United Way, and what they do to help people.
I don't understand why that would be the concern.
Me either, but I wanted to raise it. That's it.
I mean, United Way has been an active part of the discussion and working with us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could put you in touch, Amanda Klein is the United Way voice.
She's been at all the meetings.
She's been at all the meetings, United Way is fully on board, and United Way, and I can only speak for United Way in Southeast Michigan, but United Way in Southeast Michigan helps administer some of the water affordability programs that Cleveland currently runs, and the reason they're at the table is because we're reaching a financial cliff, and there are a lot of people that United Way is servicing right now that they're really worried about if we don't get this done.
Yeah,
So,
they're taking waiting lists now.
Yeah, so United Way is at the table saying, please do this so we can continue to help the communities that we operate in.
Okay.
And it doesn't take away because it created a new funding source, the $2. That's your key point. It's not taking away from existing resources, it's adding $2 to each bill to cover the cost of the program.
Absolutely. I only brought that up because that
Okay.
was something I
Well,
got.
that's good. Pushback makes us
From-
stronger.
And I'm glad you said that, so I have my ammunition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, you know, that's strange for that to be, an argument. I don't like to use that word, but that's the only thing I can think right now. Because a lot of our agencies run out of funding before the, new funding year, program said. And like the young lady said, it seems like this would help them, because this would give them room to move around, to help in other areas. So,
Yeah.
I'm putting together my piece when I get
And
there.
I'm with you, Councilwoman, because it just seems like in those types of positions, you almost wanna work your way out of a job. Meaning,
Yeah.
you're not saying that,
Hey,
you're not saying that if the need goes away, the resources go away.
Right. Cause we wanna help our.
The unfortunate thing,
we wanna help
we
our
would
people.
love, but we would love that to happen, that the
Right.
need would go away.
right.
And, but, to your point, there's other needs. And there's other household cost burdens that are
This
still not
isn't the
being
only thing
addressed.
going on in that
Exactly,
household.
yes.
And I don't wanna be the only one to keep talking, because we're elected officials. I wanna hear my constituents.
Well, our
So when I
clarion
bring it
call
up-
to you all is to contact your senators and reps and tell them to support this legislation.
Well, I've already signed. I usually don't tell how I vote, but I've already signed.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, some people said, I haven't read it yet, I don't know what it stands for. I've only heard it's, free water, or it's, another subsidy. At a minimum, say, well, please read the bills, or I can provide you with a fact sheet. We'll give you all of our information so that you can distribute it to people. And the talking points that we're using all around the state, you use them too, and call. They need the calls at their offices, because people troublemakers are out there telling them, you call. Letter writing campaigns against the legislation for all the wrong reasons.
And I think maybe it'd be a good moment to talk about the process. So
Yeah.
this is legislation at the state level. So there's been, the reason why there's been a push to talk to local elected officials is because really concerted effort at misinformation used local elected officials, really Macomb County was like the place where it started, to kick up opposition, to put pressure on state elected officials to vote against this, right? So that's why there was this big outreach, because it's really local utilities and cities that are gonna see the immediate benefit from this, right? And so that was the audience for the outreach in the letter, because the opposition started going to local officials and telling them that this was bad for them. But in terms of just like the raw things that need to happen in order for this to get done and help people, we need 56 votes in the House, so here that includes Brett Davis O'Neill, and we need 20 votes in the Senate, and that includes Senator Christy McGillivray. So those are really the relevant decision makers, and I would encourage you, if someone is really dug in and not letting go of their misinformation at a local level, like a city council, don't waste your time. We need Rep. O'Neill and Senator McDonald in it. And when this passes and people are helped and bad things don't happen, everyone can just calm down.
And if you're on a phone call with someone and they're asking questions you don't know the answer to,
Sure.
we got hotlines. You call us, we'll jump on any Zoom and be ready with the facts, okay? We're here to support.
Yeah,
the
and Jeff
outreach.
and I have my cell phone number.
Yeah.
Feel free to give it out to anyone. I'm happy to talk to anyone.
Right.
Don't know if I'll sway them, but maybe. Give it a shot.
I have a question,
Mhm.
probably more rhetorical, but why is it that there's an attitude for communities that are impoverished to spurn this type of help? Like, where is this negative messaging coming? Because it's very archaic.
It is. My hunch is that it's this general mistrust of the state, and because, well, I mean, you brought up Flint, right? Folks in Flint are having a hard time trusting the state for understandable reasons. So I think what we're asking is for everyone to collectively pool our resources to make life better for everyone, which is actually how government is supposed to work. And so we're asking everyone to, believe and trust us that that is what is going to happen with this legislation. And because of, 40 years of disinvestment or more, where communities have really been let down in a lot of ways, I think it's almost hard to believe that a good thing is happening. That's my hunch.
Yeah, and they're also hearing, my bill will go up $2.
Right.
No, everyone's bill goes up $2, but if you are a low-income household, yours will be capped, your bill, based on the household income.
Yeah, there is this, I feel like a big part of the disinformation campaign is I'm paying for people's bills.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because they-
that's why I said you
Because
might
they
just have
wanted
to.
to, they wanted to, pay for Netflix instead of,
Yeah.
Right.
No,
And that is dangerous rhetoric. What can we do to immediately against that when we hear that?
So, I mean, there's two different tacks, right? There's having a sincere conversation with someone that is not built on intentional bad faith misunderstandings, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that if you've got a relationship,
People.
right, if you've got a relationship with someone and you've got the ability to have that conversation and they're willing to sit down and listen to it, I would talk about the history of municipal debt financing and about how the fiscal reality is that majority Black communities have actually been subsidizing white communities forever. If someone is not willing to have that good faith conversation, I would say that we are all pooling our resources because it is a lot more expensive to pay interest on something than it is to just pay for it and just leave it at that and walk away.
Or you could say, we were paying for it anyway,
Yeah.
in the bad debt expense that made your rates go up.
And if they want to hear about
And
distributed
the low-income customer will be paying their fair share that they can afford.
Is there a possibility that this may make, utility companies charge higher rates? Like, is this a cash grab? Because I've heard that as well.
Well, I mean, Deb can give the utility answer, and I will give you the advocate's answer who holds the utilities accountable.
No, it's, your bill's going up $2 to go into this fund, but if you can't afford the $2, you belong in the program, and it's no effect on you. If you don't need the program, yeah, your bill's going up $2, but you were going to pay that $2 and more anyway because of the bad debt expense. So there's just some people you'll never convince, but if they'll, like you said, if they'll just listen, they were paying for it one way or another anyway. And this program allows the low-income household to keep the water on and pay what they can afford.
What's the possibilities that this gets put back on the different municipalities, like if this program stops, or, and also, what is, that out.
Well, if the law, say we have this up and running and it's working beautifully, and a bunch of cold-hearted Republicans take over the world in Michigan and just repeal all of these, then the water providers are back to square one. You know, shut-offs and put it on the tax roll and rolling it into rates, the bad debt. But we're convinced, once it's up and running, people see it can work.
Right, everyone that folks are saying they're afraid of, it's not gonna happen.
Right.
In terms of the cash grab argument, according to Governor Snyder, we need $1 billion a year for at least 20 years to pay for our drinking and wastewater infrastructure upgrades. So there's no, water utilities aren't investor-owned utilities that have to report back to shareholders and are taking legislators on junkets and, paying everyone too much and, messing around with California politics like our electric utilities are, which by the way, they are. Water utilities are very different. They're not beholden to shareholders in the same way. They are underfunded, strapped, desperately trying to get the resources that they need, and they don't have the resources that they need. And there's no one lining their pockets here. So this goes back to that, mistrust. The funding for this is going to be managed by DHHS, right? So this isn't money that is going into some CEO's salary. This is money that is going to the health department to make sure that we're not creating public health crises. And then they are managing that program in partnership with the utilities that do not have a financial incentive to hurt people. So,
Will this have an impact negatively on municipalities' water infrastructure?
my read is that it will only help.
Right.
Because if utilities are not floating the cost of bad debt and they are not struggling because they are not getting in as much money as they need, well, I mean, honestly, our drinking wastewater infrastructure needs more, but if they're not struggling with this pot of money, they will have more funding to put towards infrastructure repairs and food service.
And that's why I brought up that I work for a municipality and that we were going to pilot this. And Mott was going to, which to me that says a lot, I won't say more about that, but they were going to back it up. Just if it didn't work, then they would have put it on the back end. But we were sure that it would work because we had just did a previous study that was statewide. And that's why I'm okay with saying that it helps the utility, the municipality, in our case, because that was one of the reasons why we were doing it. That's why the city was taking on this pilot, because it was going to help us, the city. And I say that because I know that you all will get the questions and
So
as a
the
council
Detroit
person.
Lifeline Plan was basically the pilot you're talking about.
Yeah.
We got it up and running with all of the
Good.
ARPA and the CARES money and the LIWAP money. And it worked. There's 28,000 people in the program. And there's some who were still struggling with the $18 bill. But the wide majority of people are paying that bill every month. And then we're filling the gap with the LIWAP dollars and other dollars. We wiped out their debt. The average customer in Detroit had whole debt of $1,400. It's gone. Clean slate. Plumbing repairs has turned out to be the #1 money suck from the program.
Yeah.
Say it was a leaky toilet. You can't just put a new toilet in a bathroom where the whole subfloor was so soaked with water, the new toilet could fall right through it. So then you've got to shore up the bathroom floor and then put the new toilet in, things like that. The plumbing repairs have been very costly, but you have to have that water conservation element. Otherwise, you're just literally, flushing the money down the drain. You have to fix the leaks. And that's why that's built into the program. And we're hoping that if there's stressors on the money in the program, that other housing dollars, maybe CDBG dollars or something, would go more towards the plumbing repairs. Because again, they didn't have a sewer line that was connected to the sewer. Great, I give you a great toilet that flushes effectively, but it flushed your sewage right into the basement because your sewer line wasn't connected anymore. Those can be $20,000.
Yeah.
So plumbing repairs can really take on a life of their own.
If you could put a percentage or a number, to what you already have, looking up, you said Detroit, would, a lot of people that was in the rear age or whatever, would that, do you think that came from plumbing issues or not? Because they were trying to
Yeah,
buy
great
here and
question.
pay for,
Great question.
you know, just so hard for me to pay this $200 a month bill, trying to pay repair.
Yeah. I don't have the exact numbers, but the short answer is yes, absolutely. We had to change our program because at first we just made the first 6 CCFs the flat rate of $18. But if you have 6 people in the household, even if you have the most efficient toilets on earth, you're going to use more than 6 CCFs. We changed the program and allowed more usage for bigger households at the same cap rate based on household income. That's been rolled into this legislation, is that same kind of usage, consumption max based on household members. And that was very important because it looked like it was a plumbing repair that was needed, but really it was 6 or 8 people in the household. And that's why there was so much usage.
What about have any studies been done or had consideration been done? And we have a lot of inside in our older homes where you may have 2 people in a 4 or 5 bedroom home that they inherited, and it's best to own the home as opposed to moving to an apartment. So this is what my mom and my grandma left me.
Yeah.
Was that ever considered?
That's an everyday phenomenon in Detroit. So
Okay.
we knew that would be a factor for some people that, you know, this was grandma's house, but we're living here now, and it's probably a lot of leaks too in that older house with the 4 bedrooms. Might be 2, 3 bathrooms and things like that. Yes, it all relates back to the plumbing repairs. Some skeptical members of our legislature may say, well, they need to just move out of that house.
And give it to
Yeah, get a smaller house that you can afford to take care of. Okay, well, but we've heard it all.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
When are they going to vote on this?
Great question.
Yes.
I want them to know right now.
Yes.
Now.
We talked about that on the drive up.
Now, there's a lot of debate about whether or not this is going to wind up being bipartisan. So I think that's part of because there's need all over the state, right? I think that we could, in theory, vote right now in the Senate, and I'm pretty confident that we could maybe get it out of the Senate. In the state house, there are 2 open seats and everything because there were 2 members of the state house that ran for mayor, and their seats have not been filled yet. And so because there are 2 open seats, everything's kind of ground to a halt in the house. So it is less likely that anything can move in the house quickly. However, I think that it is incredibly important to get elected officials, regardless of the exact timing. This has to happen by the end of the year. Like, it has to, because there's a need, and people deserve this assistance and help. I shouldn't say assistance because it's not, but everyone will benefit if we are making sure that everyone has water, everyone. And so the idea that we're somehow benefiting low-income people at other people's expense is absolutely bananas to me, because everyone in the state is hurt when people do not have access to water. So I get really, touchy about that argument. So it has to happen by the end of the year. And there is a lot going on in Lansing right now. Everyone wants something. It's just, it's an election year. I mean, it feels like we're sitting here like walking on eggshells. And I think it's incredibly important to prioritize this. And that prioritization is not coming through yet. And I think that's part of the reason why places like Saginaw are so important, because we need elected officials in leadership. And Rep. Amos O'Neill is pretty close to leadership. Senator Christy McGillivray, pretty close to leadership. We need folks in leadership to understand that this has to be a priority. It has to, because we cannot be the Great Lakes state denying people water.
Have you all had this conversation, or anyone from your office with Rivet or O'Neill?
I just told Jeff he has to go talk to him.
Okay. And my other question would be,
I should stop by. I will.
okay, is there maybe a letter already drafted that the person can just click on and push that button?
Yep.
Yeah.
It goes to Rivet
Yeah,
and O'Neill?
absolutely. So there's,
Okay.
we've got,
I sent
so
it.
Sierra Club's got an action alert up, so Jeff's got it. You guys can send that around. There's the local elected sign-on leader letter. You've probably seen that. We've shared that with offices. All offices have had multiple rounds of communication on this. Sierra Club has sent letters to all the offices saying that we really support this. So, folks are talking about it in a thing, but it's the prioritization that needs to happen, right? And the reason why I drove up here and taking the time to do this is because of how many lives are going to be improved if this passes. I said it, offhand, but I'll say it again. There's nothing bad in here. Like there's no, Deb mentioned the compromises. I don't see it as compromise. I actually see it as consensus, right? Like people change their opinions in order to get the best policy possible. So I think that because there's so many different competing interests right now, it's very easy for something like this to just get punted and put off to the wayside because there's, everyone else wants to do something blah, 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 blah. And there's this wildly inaccurate perception that there's like a debate about this policy. There is a debate about the politics. There is not a debate about the policy. This is good policy.
And we've heard a lot of members of the legislature say, truthfully, I believe in this, that, the water is a right, there should be a program like this. I can't vote for it right now, it look bad, I might, I take a lot of heat for it, but I'm pulling for you, but I can't vote for it publicly.
Right.
Like, oh.
So we'll get in there, but that's the prioritization,
Yeah.
right? The prioritization.
So it's like, well, what will it take that you could publicly say, I support this? Is it just something that needs to be in there? Or do you not have the facts you need
I
to
think
counteract the
I
people
think
against?
they just need to hear from constituents, and they just need
Yeah.
to hear that this is great. And all the policy wonks got in the room and crafted this absolute fantastic capital legislation, but we haven't done enough talking to people about how good it is. And instead, frankly, the old school racists beat us to the punch and started trying to figure out what's going on here.
Oh,
And so we have to push back against that.
and one person who told me that they were very much in support of this but couldn't vote for it said, I got 300 calls. Once there was a news story or an op-ed by so-and-so, I got like 300 calls saying, you better not vote for that, you better not vote for that. She's like, I just think they based it only on the sound bites that were on the news and in the newspaper. Nope, it was not based on having any knowledge of what was in there. So they are, when they pick up the phone, they're tallying how many people call in support or against the legislation. The more people call in support.
Okay, I just have one other question. You mentioned that this is gonna be administered through the Department of Health and Human Services. Okay. But their stuff is all computerized now.
Yes.
So what are you gonna do about people that don't know how to use a computer?
I think with the triage process, so the package, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it outlines like multiple different levels of contact, right?
But as far as applying for the program,
Yeah,
it can be a phone call.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Then
We're
my
not
other-
going to have to sit now. The action agencies like United Way, there's Wayne Metro, there's all kinds of community action, social service agencies. They already have the program in their system for other social service benefits administered by the state. and they have what's called a universal application. If you've already applied for some other benefit, you're in the system.
Oh, that's great.
They'll just, you know, a few keystrokes and that application goes through too, based on what they already know about you. So that was something, that was one of the benefits of going through the state, is they have that database. If you already had applied for SNAP, you're in there. You just need to say, hey, I want the water program too. A couple more keystrokes that the program administrator makes, and you're in, you apply.
It's just that, the reason why I said it is because some people just don't wanna deal with DHS.
Yeah.
We know.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
We know.
They don't wanna do it, and just the fact that
We know.
they have to go through DHS is a deterrent
Yeah.
to a lot of seniors, and that's just what it is. And so I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like,
And single moms with kids don't wanna say,
Right.
I can't pay my water bill, I'm shut off or at risk of shut off, because they think their kids will be taken away. And, you know, and they can.
yeah, as soon as you
Yeah.
put that in there,
Yeah.
you're open to CPS. You don't have no water, how long you been without water? Where's the kids? Blah, blah, blah. So I'm like trying to figure out, not figure out, but was it the best move to have DHS handle this?
Well, DHS handles it if there's not an existing program at a
At the
senior
local
account,
level.
at the local
Yeah.
level. So if there's an existing program at the local level, folks can keep that program. So I'm not sure, I think maybe there's one for Saginaw. So I think that's really important because folks do think it's working in other places. And then I think the other data point that I think speaks to the frustrations that folks have accessing services, one, absolutely, could never take away from that. It's
Yeah.
totally true. Also, we know from folks at United Way, for example, that they have people on a waiting list that want help with water. So there is a need that is not being met that people are directly asking for right now. So I think that, obviously we'd like to make this program bigger. I want more money for water utilities. This is truly a step in the right direction though. And I think that another important way to just think about the overall legislation is that it really sets up something we can build on as opposed to containing anything we have to go back and fix. So a lot of times when you're dealing with legislation at the state level, there are a couple of nasty things that sneak in there that you have to go back and fix. That's not the case with this. This only creates good things that we can expand and go further with. So I think that, if we see problems with enrollment, if we see deterrence, if we see people not signing up for the program, there's a task force that's going to be evaluating it. We can figure out what the deterrent is, get people in there, because the goal is to provide a service.
Do you all worry about it here, that you may have the same issues? Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think I spent a lot of time working on water quality in other spaces. I will say that the water quality is directly related to whether or not utilities have the money they need to make improvements, right? And in a tangent, an outcome of passing this legislation means that utilities will have more money to do the work they need to do, which is work on water quality, right? So this legislation takes care of the affordability portion and shut-off issues and the direct immediate need folks have. But a knock-on effect is that utilities are going to be able to prioritize, filtering for emerging contaminants and all the other stuff that we're currently talking about. So I'll put that out there. And I think another thing to raise, I think, is the massive influx we've seen of federal dollars from the federal government under President Biden. Unprecedented, never seen anything like it. It's a really good down payment on our drinking wastewater infrastructure. It is a down payment though, so we we need more. So it was a really good first step, and there've been a lot of lead service line replacements because of those federal dollars that were so desperately needed. And just to give you an example, before the two massive spending packages were passed by the federal government, I was watching what's happening in Benton Harbor, the Missouri Black City, with their lead crisis and what's happening there. And the solution, everyone said, was replace the lead service lines. That's the solution. And that came with a $32 million price tag. The conversation before President Biden delivered that federal money was this is going to take 32 years. 32 years for $32 million. So it means multiple generations of children are going to be facing lead poisoning in Benton Harbor. It went from you're going to have to wait 32 years in Benton Harbor to it's done in 18 months. 18 months. Every single lead service line replaced in Benton Harbor. And it was because of that leadership from President Biden and that prioritization. So the reason I say that is because I think that we're so used to our government not delivering when it comes to like water quality, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to everything, that sometimes we don't even see it when it's happening, right? And so, 3 years ago, they were telling us that they could never replace all the lead service lines in Benton Harbor, and now it's done, right? 10 years ago, we were told that we were never going to be able to stop water shutoffs and water affordability was a pipe dream. But that's not the case anymore. We are replacing the lead service lines, and we do have good bills to address this. And I think it makes me really hopeful, if that makes sense. It makes me hopeful.
Can I say this too? I mean, just to that specific question about the water. We are on Lake Huron, but they switched from Detroit to like the Saginaw River. That would be like them going from Lake Huron to the Saginaw River. They switched to the Flint River and did not at all, or not in the right way, vet the process or the water system. So it's a little bit. I would say it's a lot different. Yeah.
Because it was one specific decision that changed the source water, as opposed to general degradation of the system.
Yeah. So it wasn't the same water source, and it wasn't their same water source. That's not to say that we shouldn't all be thinking about water quality, but it was to put minds at ease a little.
Yeah, that's exactly, and I think that's a really important point. It was a singular decision and action was taken that led to that. And then the cover up.
Okay, so the takeaways are the letter that you can just click and sign off on. The takeaways are tell everyone to call their reps and senator and say, please support the water affordability bills. You don't need to know all the numbers. They'll find out soon enough all the numbers.
They know.
They got me.
Jeff, you have that, you'll send that to me?
I sent it to you this morning,
Oh,
actually.
did you?
When you gave me your email,
Okay.
I sent it to you, yep.
And so I'll put it on my page where people can click on,
Well, that link is for
Elected
legislators,
officials.
right? Elected officials,
I'll
it's just
send
for
you-
elected officials.
Okay.
I'll
But
send
yeah.
the letter.
Yeah, we've got just a regular citizen action.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Please, okay, great,
You send that.
yep, I got
If
you.
you ever need talking points, you have Jeff get a hold of us and we'll help you out with whatever
Yeah,
you need.
and feel free if you get my phone number, give me a call, happy to come up here. Something like that. Let me know if I should come talk to city council too.
Yes.
But I'm happy to come up and meet in district with Rep. O'Neill or with the Christy McGillivray too. I prefer meeting in district as opposed to meeting in Lansing. I think things are a little more candid.
Yeah.
I had a question for Pam. When was this you did this?
When we did the study, it was
Yes.
probably 2018. 2019 is when Amy Hovey, who's now with Michigan, maybe doing some of the CDBG stuff, hopefully, so she would be familiar. But 2019 is when we were getting ready to do the pilot, where we would have did this. So it probably was right before you all moved it to Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was probably 2017, 2018. But we were looking at the comprehensive package or means of addressing water rates, from the infrastructure and closing off some of the gaps and holes in the system itself.
Sure.
New meters, all of that, to running our some of our system on solar.
Oh, that's
So we had, I should dig out all the things that we were looking to do.
Yes, it's great
Those
idea.
were, foundational pieces to get us to where we are now.
Right, but
Every
yeah.
piece comes together.
And so some of them say like Monica Lewis Patrick, Naira Sharif, and hopefully some of the people, they may not have known what we were doing inside of City Hall. We
Right.
talked about it a lot. We had a water summit. The cities, the Mayors Association came to Flint. We went over the package of what we were looking at. There was a we started the statewide environmental justice summit, and we kicked it off with the water summit. We were then with Snyder at the time, but
I mean,
and we work with some
$1 million a year.
we work with some interesting players. A lot of when we were going to the White House, we were meeting with the Trump administration. I mean, so there are some people who have bought into some of this. I mean, you just got to switch around the language.
Yeah.
I know water as a human rights kind of like stops to some people.
Right.
We're not recording. I was doing a presentation for a group, and I had to they wanted me to take out water as a human right, my water as a human right slide. So I was like,
You mentioned helping everyone.
yeah, so I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna do slides. I just won't do slides at all. If I have to take that one out, then I just won't do it. Because there are people who own bottled water companies who don't necessarily like that. I mean, but